Imagine a world where a massive nomadic empire has terrorized your borders for 300 years. An empire of shadows that strikes from the fog and vanishes into the desert. Every great general of your nation has failed to stop them. Then, out of nowhere, an 18-year-old boy steps onto the stage of China history. He doesn't follow the rules. He doesn't wait for supply lines. He simply rides. This is the story of Huo Qubing, the lightning conqueror, whose name alone became a nightmare for the Huns. Before he was 24, he had already achieved what men twice his age couldn't dream of. He captured princes, decimated entire tribes, and pushed the boundaries of the Han Empire further than ever before. He is the ultimate prodigy of Chinese generals, quotes a man who lived like a meteor burning bright and fast across the sky. But why did the most powerful emperor of China history trust a teenager with the fate of a nation? Welcome to 81 Chinese Generals. Subscribe now as we uncover the brutal, fast-paced wisdom of a young man who died before he could even grow old, yet left a scar on history that never healed. Huo Qubing was not born in a palace, but he was raised in one. As the nephew of the legendary General Wei Qing, he was surrounded by maps and swords from the moment he could walk. The Emperor Wu of Han saw a unique fire in the boy, a reckless divine confidence that older generals lacked. While others studied ancient texts of slow siege warfare, Huo was obsessed with one thing: speed. He understood a vital principle of Chinese generals, quotes, "The enemy cannot hit what they cannot see, and they cannot see what moves faster than the wind." He trained a specialized group of light cavalrymen who could live in the saddle for weeks. The emperor offered to teach him the classic art of war, but the young man replied with a classic of his own among Chinese generals, quotes, "One should only worry about how to lead, not study the ancient dead." He was a modern disruptor in an ancient world, a maverick of China history, who proved that genius doesn't need a beard to be deadly. At the age of 18, Huo Qubing was given his first command, 800 elite light cavalry. It was supposed to be a scouting mission. Instead, it became one of the most daring raids in China history. Huo didn't stay with the main army. He took his 800 men and rode hundreds of miles deep into enemy territory. They were ghosts in the desert. They struck a Xiongnu encampment like a thunderbolt, capturing high-ranking officials and killing 2,000 enemies. When he returned, even his famous uncle was stunned. The boy had done the impossible. This victory established the core of his Chinese generals. Quotes, "Fortune favors the fast." He had bypassed the slow war of attrition and turned the conflict into surgical high-speed strikes. He proved that a small elite force could achieve more than a clumsy army of 100,000. The lightning had struck for the first time. By the year 121, before the Common Era, Huo Qubing was a legend at only 19. The emperor gave him 10,000 cavalry and a mission: clear the Hexi corridor. This was the lifeline of the Silk Road. Huo Qubing conducted a masterclass in mobile warfare that redefined China history. He crossed 5 nomadic kingdoms in just 6 days. He climbed the frozen peaks of the Qilian mountains, where the air is thin and the cold is deadly. The Huns thought they were safe, but Huo Qubing arrived like a blizzard. He killed or captured over 30,000 enemies, including princes and queens. His speed was so terrifying that nomads began to believe he was a supernatural being. This campaign is a testament to his Chinese generals, quotes, "The mountains are not a wall if your heart is a bridge." He had secured the gateway to the west, and the Han Empire could finally breathe. What made Huo Qubing different from every other commander in China history? It was his complete disregard for traditional rules. Most generals moved slowly with massive wagon trains. Huo Qubing traveled light. He lived off the land, capturing the enemy's cattle and grain. He turned the Xiongnu's mobility against them. He didn't just fight nomads, he lived like them. This aggressive logistics is a secret found in the most effective Chinese generals, quotes, "The enemy's grain is twice as sweet because it feeds your men and starves theirs." By the time the Xiongnu realized he was coming, it was already too late. He penetrated 1,000 miles behind enemy lines where no Han soldier had ever stepped. He captured the golden statue used by the Xiongnu for worship, a blow that shattered their spirit. He was becoming the king of the steppe, and the Xiongnu Khan was forced to flee further into the frozen north. To defeat a wolf, you must become a wolf. By the year 119, before the Common Era, Huo Qubing had mastered the desert. While others were terrified of the shifting sands, he moved with a predator's instinct. He understood a brutal truth of Chinese generals' quotes, "The desert is not an enemy to be feared, but a weapon to be used." He drove the Xiongnu to the brink of extinction. He led his cavalry 2,000 miles across the burning wastes, a distance that would have killed a normal army. He moved so fast that scouts couldn't report his position before he was at their gates. This was the first total war in China history. He captured 70,000 nomads in a single campaign, effectively breaking the back of the Xiongnu Empire. He was the Wolf of the Gobi, a man who could track a shadow across the sand and find water where others found only death. Every general dreams of a moment that echoes through eternity. For Huo Qubing, it was at the summit of Mount Langjuxu. After chasing the Huns to the edge of the world, he performed the Fengshan ritual, a ceremony usually reserved for emperors. At only 21 years old, he stood at the roof of the world. This was the ultimate statement of victory in China history. He had reached the Sea of Eternity, watering his horses in the freezing depths of Lake Baikal. This event inspired patriotic Chinese generals' quotes for centuries. He had achieved the dream that eluded his ancestors for 300 years. But as he stood at the absolute peak of fame, a shadow was beginning to fall. The fire that burns twice as bright burns half as long. He had reached the stars, but the earth was calling him back far sooner than anyone expected. Success often breeds luxury, but Huo Qubing was a man of iron. When he returned, the emperor built a magnificent mansion for his champion. But Huo Qubing refused to step inside. He uttered words that became famous in China history. "The Xiongnu have not been destroyed. How can I think of a home?" He chose to live in the barracks with his men sleeping on hard wood. He understood that comfort is the enemy of the warrior. In business, this is the day one mindset, never resting on your laurels. He stayed hungry. He lived for the mission and nothing else. This self-sacrifice is a theme in the best Chinese generals' quotes. He knew his destiny was not in a garden but on the edge of a blade. He gave everything to the nation, even his chance at a normal life. He was a hero who had no home because his home was the entire frontier. Then the lightning suddenly stopped. In the year 117 before the Common Era, at the age of only 23, Huo Qubing passed away. His death remains a mystery in China history. Some say he was poisoned by diseased animal bodies left in the water by nomads. Others say he burned out, exhausted by a speed no human could endure. The entire Han Empire went into mourning. The emperor, who loved him like a son, was devastated. The lightning conqueror was gone before he could see the full fruits of his labor. This is the dark side of Chinese generals' quotes. The brightest stars are often the first to fade. He left a legacy of brilliance and a standard of bravery that no one has matched. He proved greatness isn't about how long you live, but how much you change while you are here. The young god returned to the heavens, leaving a legacy of fire for 2,000 years. Huo Qubing's life was a miracle of China history, a lightning bolt that vanished too soon. He died at 23, but he did more than empires do in a century. The emperor built him a tomb shaped like the Qilian mountains, guarded by stone horses trampling Huns. Huo Qubing teaches us that age is just a number, but audacity is a superpower. In business and in life, the person who moves with the most speed and least fear will rewrite the rules. His Chinese generals' quotes remind us, "Victory is not found in the books of the past, but in the courage of the present." Thank you for joining 81 Chinese generals. Huo Qubing gave his life to the empire. Was he a hero of destiny or a victim of his own fire? Comment 1 if he is the greatest prodigy, or 0 if you prefer older wisdom. I am Silas, and the legend of the lightning conqueror will never fade.